What's up, Netrunners? Welcome to PeachHack. My name is Ben, and I am joined once again by Aaron. How you doing, Aaron?
Hey, Ben. How are you?
I am great. We are in the top 8 of the Giga-bites Cafe Store Championship on January 24th, 2015 in Marietta, Georgia. This is the first game of the losers bracket. We just came off a game between David and Ahmed in the first round of winners. And now, on the left, we have David here in this game, playing this time as Corp, as HB Engineering the Future. And he is playing against Hollis on the right, who is playing as Andromeda. HB Engineering the Future, of course, is able to gain the credit the first time they install a card each turn. And Andromeda's ability is that she starts the game with 9 cards in hand. Now, these two identities, we've seen them all the time. They're pretty early on in the cycles, I guess.
Almost there?
So, Andromeda, what do you typically see out of Andromeda?
So typically you've got your normal Andromeda Data Sucker, Desperado, security testing build. Clearly that's an extremely powerful deck fueled by Data Suckers as well and the Fix Breakers. But we've also seen a lot more of the Stealth Andromeda. We actually saw it a lot at this tournament, so that's making, I think, a big resurgence.
And Engineering the Future, it's a really interesting idea to me because I feel like it could be anything.
You're exactly right. It could be traps. It could be Glacier. It could be Fast Advance. Seeing that ID, you just know that they've got access to a bunch of good cards, and you have no idea what you're going to play against.
Yeah. You just have to, spend your time figuring out what it's going to be. We do see 2 pieces of ISN and remote for HB, and a fairy coming out right away for Andromeda. Andy, I find, is interesting because we do see the Ghost Runner, so we are going to see some Stealth Andy.
So we're playing Stealth Andy.
Yeah. As Andromeda, though, it's tricky because since you start out with 9 cards in hand, you want to try to play at least 4 cards, for all 4 of your clicks on your first turn, which means, are they going to run? I mean, it might be a dirty laundry if they run, but otherwise, you can sometimes get a safe first turn.
Yeah, Hollis has got the rig going pretty quickly here with Refractor and Fairy. I mean, obviously still needing the Barrier Breaker, but you expect to see in a lot of cases a lot of Bioroid ice that you may be able to click through anyway. So he's got the important breakers that I think he needs at this point.
Yeah, Code Gates and Sentries being by far the most dangerous pieces of ice out there. Sentries number 1, but Code Gates more and more are becoming just as dangerous with things like Merlin and Checkpoint.
That's right.
But with the Ghost Runner, he's enhanced login protocol. That's going to put a damper on things.
It's good not just in replicating perfection. It is a good card, and it's one of those things where it just slows your ability to put that early game criminal pressure on. So I like it.
Hollis checks HQ, hits a next silver, I believe. Oh, and checks RD and pulls a Gila Hands off the top, and that gets rid of enhanced login protocol. So that'll do it.
It was not long for this world, and it's tough. You don't want to see that agenda gone too, because in a lot of cases you see the Corp biotic labor that out, and that is a big part of their economy engine. So that's a tough one to see go early.
Yeah, it's always nice just to Gila Hands credit if you need to.
That's exactly right.
It's amazing the difference that 1 credit can make.
It's thinking hard on this one.
Yeah. As I was saying, it's a daily business show. Oh, man, talk about a card that has become so important so quickly.
I could see it being important in Engineering the Future in the sense that you get the free install credit, and obviously with the low res cost, it's a card you like to see and keep it on the table for a while.
Yeah, I mean, the longer it stays out, the higher quality the draws are going to be for the Corp. It's one of those cards where these days I almost always want to trash it as soon as I see it come out. And it hurts because there's a 4 trash cost, but it just gives so much value to the Corp. Several runs on R&D so far with no res on that ice in front of it. David is at 3 credits, so it's probably something he just can't res, or maybe he just doesn't want to res it yet.
This is also interesting. I know Hollis has been pretty aggressive running early, but usually at this point you see after that bursty opening turn, Andy usually has the Desperado, the security testing online, and you really don't see a lot of that rig that you're used to seeing from an early Andromeda opening hand.
I mean, he's got a pretty decent rig now. I mean, the Refractor with the Ghost Runner credits is online. He's going to be able to get through plenty of Code Gates, at least for a few turns. And Fairy, you know, it'll protect him from face checking something super dangerous. Still no res on R&D, but he sees nothing. But yeah, it's interesting not to see. It's almost disconcerting not to see Andromeda without at least security testing or Desperado this early.
It's tough because if you wait long enough, Archives has already been iced up, and so if you wait too long, I mean, obviously it looks like there's going to be some remote assets that you can use to play security testing off of, assuming he gets that online. But the more pressure you can put on early, certainly the easier it is to get that economy engine going.
Another Ghost Runner coming out for Hollis, and David gets an Adonis campaign, so hopefully that'll help him gain his economy. I feel like this has just been a really low econ game. Neither player, I think the most credits we've even seen at one time is 6 credits out of David. I mean, it's been pretty low down.
And certainly seeing all the next dice, the longer Hollis waits to start being able to put pressure on, the next dice obviously builds off of itself. And so we've seen the first next silver res, saw another one in hand, and so obviously the board's going to get a little bit tougher and more expensive.
Ooh, an Inazuma on top of R&D. Hollis does have the Refractor to break it. Refractor is 2 strength, and I think with a stealth credit you could boost it by 3. So we'll be able to use 1 stealth credit to boost. I think what Hollis is deciding whether or not he wants to use Ghost Runner or regular credit to break. Oh, he decides to break the one that says he can't break anything on the next piece of ice.
Interesting. Over Architect.
And using the Fairy. Ooh. He decided, so he used the Ghost Runner credit instead of real credit to boost Fairy strength and uses it on Architect. It always feels so good to me as the Corp if Runner uses a Fairy on Architect. I feel like it's a win-win either way.
That's true, because obviously David's invested a lot into this server and putting the Inazuma over the Architect, but it's going to provide a lot of value, and the more Fairy can only get you so far, and between Refractor credits, and I'm not sure if Hollis is playing Switchblade, I assume is somewhere in there, but it's going to start taxing those stealth credits.
And putting David at 0 credits means that Hollis was able to go and trash that Adonis campaign before he was able to get any more value out of it. And David turns around and Archive Memories that Adonis right back to install it. Of course, he can't res it at this point.
Yeah, this is a tough place for an HP player to be. Obviously, it looks like a deck that's focused on getting those Adonises and all the sexy robots online to provide the money engine. But especially with the Gila hands being stolen, you don't have a lot of reliable economy on the board right now. So he needs to draw some hedge funds or something to get the economy back online, because a lot of HB ice tends to be a little bit on the pricier side.
Yeah. A Switchblade going in the trash for Hollis. One must assume he has it in hand as well. It's definitely a breaker that I feel like took a while before people warmed up to it. It's kind of weird because you have to use 2 stealth credits in order to get much value out of it.
No, you're exactly right. Against a deck like this, we haven't seen an Ichi yet or some of the more threatening sentries other than Architect, but certainly some of the Bioroids or some of the scarier sentries you see, especially Ichi and Architect. So I think that's going to be one that he's happy to have with this many stealth credits available to him.
Yep. And Jackson, I think, is going to be pretty useful here for the Corp, just to figure out, to get the pieces that he must be looking for, maybe to get the pieces of his economy back. But he does pop Jackson to save what's probably some agendas out of Archives. And it just feels a little bit like a battle of attrition at this point. Both players, like I said, they're just extremely low on economy, not able to really get anything heavy going. Hollis doing a great job of forcing David to spend credits that he doesn't really want to spend to prevent Hollis from doing bad stuff.
Yeah, it looks like he's holding some agendas in hand at this point, so we've got to get to the point. I'm not sure if he's playing Biotic Labors to start firing these out of HQ, but he certainly, if I'm looking at the board at this point, I'm really worried about a special order to go get a corroder and then into a legwork at some point. So he's got to be feeling the pressure of, I can't start holding this many agendas in hand because I have been crushed by many a legwork in my time, and that's always something I'm aware of when I've gone this many turns without starting to score something out.
Yeah, and he did mandatory draw into an agenda right after he finished Jacksoning. So that probably can't feel good. You just got yourself flooded, and then you get another one. But a roto turret and no sentry breaker for Hollis means that the refractor is gone. That is a great move. A lot of times when you're facing HB, you feel comfortable face checking something early because you're like, oh, I can click through it. But nope, not roto turret.
And this is one of the hard parts with Stealth, Andy. I mean, obviously, when you invest into Switchblade and you have the Stealth credits recurring online, it's great, and an ice like Rototurret becomes less threatening. But when you're really reliant on Fairy to carry you through the early game, it can be very tough to have something like Rototurret Architect on the board where you've only got so many Fairies to deal with, and that's not going to be able to carry you to protect you forever.
Yeah, absolutely. John Masanori, we've got 2 of the 3 parts of the Andromeda standard econ package. The only thing we're waiting for is Desperado at this point. Another ice going over that Rototurret. Another reason I guess we don't see Rototurret that often is because it's super vulnerable to Parasite.
That's a great point. I don't know if Hollis is running Parasite, but it still is a very popular Andy splash, and this is exactly the situation you want it in.
Eli over that remote means it's going to be porous, at least for security testing, which in terms of credits gained is probably sort of a wash compared to clicking for credits. But he gets a silencer out, so now he's got a recurring credit to use on that lockpick when it eventually comes out.
Yeah, it's interesting to see David starting to ice up and res so much ice over these remote servers. I still look at that HQ, and if I'm him, I'm a little bit worried about either the account siphon coming or, and it looks like he knows exactly what I'm thinking, because when I have one piece of ice against Criminal, I am always a little bit nervous of what could be coming.
Security testing on Archives. David has 3 credits, decides not to res. And that's a much better deal in terms of security testing. I don't want to click through Eli. That'd be lame. And John Masanori draw.
Yeah, Hollis has done a nice job of trying to get ice rezzed and kind of force the corp into keeping him out, because obviously the security testing John Masanori combo, you need a server to actually be able to exploit that, and he's done a great job of doing that on Archives.
And there is the Desperado. The security package is complete. Well, the economy, security testing, etc. So, Hollis has got himself settled into a rig. Well, no breakers, but he is up to 7 credits now. He's got means by which he can get money a lot easier and card draw. Whereas the Corp, I feel like, is still kind of struggling to regain its footing.
Yeah, and if I'm Hollis at this point, I'm really trying to aggressively get either a barrier breaker or to figure out a way to get into HQ, because at this point, without seeing any agendas scored, I've got to believe he's holding 2 or 3 in hand.
Absolutely. I mean, the longer the Corp goes without making any sort of move to score an agenda, the more likely it is they're just holding agendas in hand, especially without seeing a Jackson Howard. There's the Switchblade. It's got a silencer attached to it. I'm not really sure how that makes sense.
The flavor fail is probably pretty evident, but Switchblade is a very powerful card, and once you get it online, you don't spend a lot of money breaking the most typically taxing ice type in the centuries that there is. But yeah, at this point, I am deathly afraid of a siphon or of a legwork, so I think the Corp needs to prioritize protecting HQ at all costs at this point.
He does go for that Adonis again that was sitting there for a while. Finally had the money that he felt comfortable resing it, which might, if Hollis wants to deny money to the Corp, that would prompt Hollis to go trash it.
Completely agree. Anything to distract attention away from HQ at this point is where you want to be.
Oh, an accelerated beta test in that remote. And he does decide to fire it. Oh, he draws 2 Jacksons in this accelerated beta test and no ice.
I respect the play nonetheless. David's my kind of player. I like the reckless beta test.
And the other Jackson's already used. All of his Jacksons are gone. He does have archived memories in the deck, so he could archive memories one back. That will be his saving grace if he has one. Hedge fund, 2 Jacksons, I think. Hollis is happy about that. And that was a normal archives run, just in case there were any agendas that were dumped in that beta test.
It's always tough to flop on a beta test, but at that point in the game when you really do need some ice to protect you, I think it's the right call, and it's a risk you're willing to take when you're already holding that many agendas in hand.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's one of those YOLO plays. Come on, you got to do it. You got to go for it. But
hey, you put the beta test in your deck for a reason. You didn't put it in there just to score 2 points. You want free ice.
Free ice, that'd be, oh man, the dream. Free Janus, free Archer.
We can always dream.
We can always dream. But the amount of time. Ooh, he does have an archive memory, so Jackson, and he uses it to gain the Jackson. You're back. Jackson is rescued from the depths of archives.
Jackson can go save himself now.
So what is he going to do at this point? He's probably going to install the Jackson just so it's safe in case it doesn't get trashed again.
It's tough. We see a Biotic join David's hand, but obviously the low credit count is not helping him get any closer to that. But that's really what he wants at this point.
I actually think he just installed an agenda. I could be wrong. I may have missed it, but I think that might be an agenda in that far remote. Which would be really interesting, kind of a bluff. Though, I mean, so he went and leaned over and shuffled his hand so that Hollis wouldn't be able to see, oh, is this a Jackson or something else? So that could be a tell that that isn't a Jackson. 3 credits. Hollis is going to run on that server. What's it going to be? No res. And, oh, it is a Jackson. All right, I was wrong. I thought it was going to be sneaky. That would have been awesome.
He snuck the first one out. It wouldn't put it past him to try another one.
Yeah, and he retrieves Jackson and archive memories and something off camera. Going back in R&D. I wonder what he's planning then on using that archive memories for later. Possibly a Biotic Labor, or maybe if Adonis campaign, he wants to retrieve it yet again.
Yeah, at this point, it's funny, even with very little expensive ice rezzed, the central servers have been holding up really well.
Yeah.
You haven't seen a legwork yet. R&D has basically been untouched for several turns now, so these centrals are holding up really well.
And a Fairy next to that Switchblade is doubling down on Sentry Breakers. It's going to keep Hollis going against any of these taxing Sentry servers.
Yeah, and you see the R&D interface. I mean, obviously with the Switchblade down, the Architect's not as much of a threat as it was early game, but with the Refractor in the bin, he's got to figure out a way to be able to challenge the Inazuma, because obviously letting Architect fire, if you start just putting Adonises back into play for free and putting free ice out of your hand over R&D, it's just going to make it tougher to get back in the next time.
Mm-hmm. The question then is, does Hollis have either a means of pulling that Refractor back out or another Refractor in the deck?
It's a good question. I see a lot of decks that only run a Refractor and a Passport, so that may very well be his only one. I haven't seen Hollis's deck list, but that is certainly a risk, and while Passport's a great card, with all those stealth credits on the board, you'd certainly rather have the Refractor for a 5-strength code gate.
Yeah. I mean, if you have something like a Lockpick, then at least you can use that on Passport, but that's more influence in this case. You'll see a Lockpick a lot more often in Shaper Stealth. And there is a Passport. To get through that Inazuma, it's still going to be pretty expensive.
Yeah, that is a pricey card. You certainly don't want to let the Architect fire at this point in the game, in my mind.
Yep. I mean, it's going to cost $4 just to get Passport up to strength. David installing something in that remote. Porus is behind an Eli. My guess would be maybe yet another Adonis. Security testing on that empty remote, and David is content to leave that ice unrezzed. Doesn't want to give Hollis any information.
Yeah, David's done a nice job in this game of just kind of putting enough out there on the remotes to get Hollis to check and to spend a good portion of his turn having to make sure that he's not trying to sneak out another agenda.
And the Cloak is yet another recurring stealth credit, and here's the legwork.
There it is.
We have a full Breaker Suite out here, and it's another next silver. So Corroder, so Next Silver, both of those have 2 subroutines, I believe, is the way Next Silver works. So it'll cost $4 total to get through with Corroder.
Yeah, he's just going to have enough after this, I think, to be able to, he takes the Desperado money, to be able to steal an NAPD, because that's the worst feeling. You go in and you can't find what you need without paying for it. So, this is lucrative.
My gosh, it's hemorrhaging here. Antibiotic labor.
I'll take that legwork any day.
Absolutely. And it looks like he did actually have an NAPD in hand, it looks like. So Hollis did a great job there using the stealth credit and then 3 regular credits to make sure that he had enough for NAPD.
Yeah, that's
that
so
could have been
important.
game over right away.
And even at this point, I mean, we've been pretty far into the game without seeing a legwork. You've got to assume that even if he doesn't have another one in hand, that's not going to be the last one he has. And so I think at this point, we've got the full breaker suite online. We've got enough recurring stealth credits. I mean, we've got to, I think, prioritize getting up enough money to start biotic laboring these agendas out of hand, because he does not have a strong remote now that the stealth rig is set up. There's no way that any of his ice is going to be able to really prevent Hollis from breaking through any remotes.
Yep, and David still pretty low here on credits, only at 5. He did get another Adonis campaign. But what do you do at this point? There's very little that you can threaten. It's going to take some money, looks like. And he did. He advanced that card in that remote server.
And this is tough because if the roto turret out, I mean, the roto turret's pretty neutralized. Ooh. And here you go. This is exactly what happens.
Siphon will bring David down to 1 credit, meaning that if that is a trap, like a Cerebral Overrider, he's not going to be able to afford to activate it. Aggressive Secretary is another, I guess, possibility that... how much is that to activate? It's either 1 or 2. I can't remember. But either way, even if it is Aggressive Secretary, it's just 1 program, which there's honestly... I guess it would be Corroder would be the one you choose, but that's getting ahead of ourselves. We don't even know what this ice is. So no res on the first ice. It is an NAPD. So that will be game for Hollis. That legwork was pretty brutal.
Yeah, such a classic criminal play of the legwork, and then you siphon to make sure you've got low credits on the corp to access the remote. Just a textbook criminal play.
Yeah. And big thanks to these 2 players. Both David and Hollis did come in from out of town to play in this tournament. We had a healthy 47 people at this tournament at Giga-bites Cafe. And, so big thanks to them for coming out and playing, both getting top 8, so obviously great players. Aaron, thank you so much for joining me.
Ben, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we'll be coming up with the next game of the top 8 cut pretty soon, and we'll see you next time.